It's awfully nice to have you back. I'm Mary Davidson, and it's our community. Today we have a very interesting, and I say young man, with us, and he is, well, his career is exploding. I think that's really the proper word, Rashawn. I honestly do. He has the show at the Nerman at the moment, and it is, I think it's striking. I don't know how else to describe it because you know, I'm kind of an old lady and installations are not on my radar screen usually. And I thought, you know, when I walked through it, I thought, isn't that an amazing effort on the part of an artist that I had never met until today. And so I think it's particularly important that not having met you, I don't know anything about you, and yet what you left behind you struck a chord. I mean, to me, I think that's good, Rashawn.
Yeah. Thanks, so much.
But you know, the interesting part is the minute you walk into the Nerman to go up the steps, you see a pennant hanging, and it says, Griffin, Kansas. Now, how did you come up with Griffin, Kansas?
Oh,
it's a big black thing, and it hangs.
Yeah.
Yes.
As soon as you come in, it's like right there. It's up there.
And there it is, and and it says Griffin, Kansas. How did I know there isn't any of one of those?
Yeah. No. As far as I know, there isn't. I've heard some people may have found something here or there, but actually,
but there is a Rashawn Griffin.
There is a Rashawn Griffin, for sure. He's there. Let me think. I mean, the idea came actually. Both because I knew the space was there, and also I have a good friend. Who's his last name is Volin, Daniel Volin, and he had I was over at his house, which is you know, it's where my studio is, and he had this pennant on his wall that said Volin, SD, and I asked him, I was like, well, what's Volin SD, and he goes, my great grandfather or one of my relatives, there's a town in South Dakota, it's called Volin, and I was like, oh, it's because I knew he was from South Dakota, so I thought it was because he was from South Dakota. It was like a pennant for you know, for him because he was from there. And he goes, no, my great grandfather, they invented this town called Volin in South Dakota. And I thought, oh, that's great, I want one of those. I would love to have one.
So you just made one.
So yeah, I made one. I was like, he was like, well, did your relatives invent a town? And I was like, no, they didn't, but you know what? Maybe they did now. And there.
See, you've given him the incentive to do this, Rashawn.
Yeah, for sure. So I made it and I put it up there.
Well, Griffin, Kansas is the introduction to the one-person show called Hole in the Wall. Yeah. Well, Hole in the Wall Country. Now, I have to keep pushing it. How did you come up with that?
Yeah. Oh, I mean that. I guess in the same way, it was actually when I was in grad school. It was reading a book, and it was a title chapter of one of the chapters in the book, and I just thought it sounded great, and I knew the show that I was making was kind of. In a lot of ways, it was sort of about this place. I sort of, you know, gave myself a list of questions. What is this place? What's happening here? What's going on? And so somehow I sort of came across that title, and I thought it was a good description of, you know, a good way to sort of give a name to a place or an idea or something that was there.
I see. And the interesting thing is, Rashawn, is that the interpretation of a hole in the wall country is whatever you wish to make it.
Yeah, I think so too.
I mean, really.
Yeah.
But I know the book was about Nat Love.
Oh yeah, it was. It was Nat Love, he was an African American cowboy. Yeah, and it was sort of a biography. It was an autobiography. Yeah, he wrote it himself, and it's sort of full of this fantastic tales of being a cowboy and then working.
He was a Pullman porter.
Yeah, exactly. And all of these things, and I sort of, I don't know, I sort of like the idea of grabbing things kind of in the world and sort of adopting them. And
but that's what you do.
Yeah.
That's what this to me, this installation is all about. You grab things from all over and put them together in an installation. And how would you describe an installation-oriented work?
I think it's interesting because I think installation is kind of it's a really ill-defined term because everything's kind of installed. You know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
it is.
When you go into a museum or a gallery painting, they're all installed on the walls.
But they're not all three-dimensional.
That's true too. But I think for me, I was interested in making something that was impactful when you came in, when you saw it, and when it was there. And I sort of let that sort of guide me.
Well, I know that one of the first things I saw was this installation with all kinds of wonderful tassels.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah.
But when you do something, I love that because I like stuff.
For sure.
And when you do something like this, what's your thinking? What goes through your mind? I mean, there wasn't anything there, so did you think one morning you were going to make something with tassels?
Well, I love tassels too. I have this long obsession with tassels. I have like huge tassel collection. I accidentally became fascinated with them because they're so.
Why do you like them?
They're kind of useless, and but they're also beautiful at the same time.
Now, is that a descriptor of you, a collector of useless items?
Perhaps so. I mean, maybe that's what all artists are to some degree, more or less. But I had been collecting them, and I'd been making these sort of arrangements and these drawings. I actually think about it more like a wall.
So you draw first?
Well, no, I think about them as a wall drawing, only drawing with the tassels instead of a pen or a pencil or a drawing or paper. I'm sort of using material in the world.
Well, when you decide you're going to create something like this, what goes through your mind? Do you wake up one morning and you think, I think I'll look at my collections, I think I'll make something with tassels? How does it come to you? What goes through your mind is important because out of that thinking comes that creation.
I agree, totally. My work is about material. It's about things in the world, the materials, the things that are around me, the things I live with, the things that happen, my obsessions, and how that language relates to the language of painting too. My background is sort of in painting and sculpture, and so I sort of come at my making from those two vantage points to some degree. So in a lot of ways, I sort of try to circumnavigate this idea of
stuff.
Yeah, it's about stuff, but it's also like sort of about just kind of the everyday stuff, like things like this and that. It's sort of like I always think about it like breaking out of prison, you know, and you got a spoon and the dirt and you got to dig a hole, you know, because that's what you have, and you make it work and you make it do something.
Well, but at the bottom of that hole, sometimes you find something wonderful.
Exactly. Totally with you there.
I got to ask you a really personal question.
Yeah, go for it.
How many tassels do you have?
I can't because I have some here, some there.
Too many to
count?
count?
I have a lot of, I haven't counted really, but it's not bad. It's not bad.
Okay.
Because I come from a line of collectors. Like
Does your mother collect?
She collects everything. Like everything. Like anything anything that she comes across, she kind of cobble. Like if something in one of her family or like us, the kids.
They call those kind of hoarders.
She's close to it. I don't know if well, actually I can't comment on that. I really don't.
You'll be in trouble.
Exactly.
Can you use her things to make your
No. She's so,
but you know,
she knows everything.
But I'll tell you something. I think that her collection influenced you to be interested in the rather mundane things, actually, in the world around you.
Yeah.
To make out of the mundane something beautiful and something that makes people think.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that what you do?
Yeah, that's totally what I do.
Yeah, and I know you're interested in fabric as well.
Oh yeah, a lot of fabric I have going on.
And you sew, because you have to be able to sew to get this.
Totally.
And the fabric, there's one up there that's bright pink and bright blue, and it has red in it. And you had to sew that together. Do you have fabric that you can pull out? Or do you see fabric in a store and buy a piece? How did you choose that? And then you paint on it.
That piece in particular, it's all, I mean, it's canvas. It was a painting. I bought it at a store, and it's all oil paint on paint. Like that one in particular.
That one is painted on.
Yeah, that one's all paint. It's actually not, it's art. It's art canvas. There was no sewing involved, no anything on that one. Other pieces I have sewn together and used fabric.
There's one that has fabric on it.
Yeah, exactly.
And why do you like that fabric?
That fabric, I mean, they all come from different places. I think that one in particular, I sort of, I got excited about this Griffin idea And I tried to find the tartan that was connected to the name Griffin.
Griffin. Oh.
And so it's sort of the closest thing I came to. So it was my own kind of Griffin tartan fabric. So in a weird way, it kind of was operating as a self-portrait.
Do the things, that brings forth a kind of an interesting point. Do the things that you use in your installations have any meaning to you, or other than you're just attracted by them?
When I was looking for the Griffin tartan.
Well, that did. Yeah. That
For
was
sure,
but like the tassels,
Yeah.
you're attracted to them because of their color, because they mean something to you.
I'm sort of interested in the way things kind of exist in culture and sort of using those ideas about what things are and what things happen to sort of, I always say, create my own space outside of, or working with
But
these
that's
sort of
what
cultural.
people try to do in many different ways.
I totally agree.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
I want to pull out a word that you used.
Sure.
Different cultures. Do you expand your effort and your artistic effort to include many cultures? Have you done that, or is that something that's on your screen?
I think, for me, like I said, I sort of, I always view my work through this language of abstraction, of sort of taking something from one place and sort of filtering it and then putting it back out in another, So the way you come to it is not necessarily the way it exists in the world, I think.
I call that making sausage.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great metaphor, I guess.
I know that you grew up in Olathe.
Yeah.
And the African American population in Olathe just topped 5%. So I think you have lived in an interesting world growing up.
Yeah.
How do you think that influenced or do you think it did?
Well, I think it's interesting on a number of levels. I guess I have to say that I have a lot of family, an extended family in Kansas City proper. And so I grew up with them as much as I was in Olathe. And so I always feel like I was in a lot of different communities, but you don't really notice that growing up, more or less. And so I can't say if there was a direct influence in sort of growing up, or where I was, or what I was doing, or that sort of thing. I will say there were a lot of, both in terms of culture, there's all these canonical ideas of what it means to be, what it means to be an artist, what it means to be black, what it means to be male, and I never totally, I think everybody, they weren't things that I always applied to what I thought who I was, or what I was doing.
But they're all bits and pieces of the installation that is Rashawn Griffin.
Well, yes and no.
Yes and no?
Yeah, I don't. I think I was sort of interested in finding a space, or making a space that sort of that I could exist in, that sort of made sense to me necessarily, because even if that wasn't something that I saw growing up in culture where it was, I sort of wanted to have that freedom,
I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, and so.
And then you went east. Now here's another interesting turn that your life took. You chose to go east to school, and you got a Bachelor of Fine Arts at the Maryland Institute College of Art in Baltimore.
Yeah. For sure.
Talk about that experience.
Oh, that was great. I mean, I didn't know anything about art.
How did you get there?
Honestly, it's pretty random. It really was random.
Was it?
I think I was in high school and I was interested in art, but
you always wanted to be an artist of some sort.
I didn't even know what that meant at that time. Being an artist, like, what does that mean? I don't think that was it wasn't anything I saw a lot of art growing up, like even being here. But the idea of being an artist wasn't something I really knew what it was or what was going on. And I guess I sort of figured that out once I got to art school, more or less. And I think I happened to get in. It happened to be, an okay place to go. My dad's and his family are actually from Baltimore, so
you had family there.
Yeah, I wasn't very super close, but
But there was some connection.
There was some connection,
yeah.
more or less. And so once I got there, I sort of, I was just doing, like I like to say, I'm always doing what I do for fun. I'd just be doing this on my own if it wasn't my job. per se.
But
So it
you
seemed
enjoy it, so it's not a job.
yeah, exactly. And so it seemed like the art and art world necessarily were kind of where I just sort of fit.
But the glowing stone in your crown is your master's of fine arts from Yale. To that, because my husband was a Yalie, and
Okay.
I know that to me, and I got to say this, that was one of the smartest things you ever did was go to Yale.
Yeah.
Not because it's Yale, but because you make wonderful contacts.
Yeah.
The faculty is well connected, and you had talent. So as they say, to me, the planets aligned when you went to get your Now, does that seem to resonate with you?
Yeah, I think the best thing about grad school and all grad schools is to do nothing but make art. like that's really the focus of why you're there. And they there are a lot of great people who come in, but also I think there are a lot of great students and peers. And the people I talk to now are a lot of friends I met there. And they're people who are my colleagues, and they, like one of my good friends has a show up at Grand Arts right now in Kansas City, and she was out here, and so it's a very, it just kind of works out that way. I think it's, I think it's a double-edged sword in a lot of ways too, but I personally had a great time.
But you have succeeded in a very grand manner in a very short time.
Okay.
And I know that you were chosen to do a studio museum in Harlem. That was a nice honor too.
Oh yeah, that was fantastic. Yeah, no, I had a great time. It's interesting being an artist in a museum per se. It's like, and I think that's the only program out there like that, where you can you're in the museum, but you're actually seeing how this thing operates, how decisions are made, how shows are put together. I think all museums should have artists in it, actually. I think that's really, it would be a good thing to sort of understand how.
But that's really when your career took off, after you had that inclusion in that studio museum. And what was it, 05, 06?
Yeah, I was in residence there from 2005 to 2006, and it was right after graduate school. I sort of moved to New York.
It seems to me that you're in what they call the post-black generation. Because I do think so, because I think the black artists that came before you were very interested in portraying black subjects. The young African American artists don't seem as interested in that. I would
disagree with that, actually.
You would disagree with that? Go
yeah,
ahead.
I think so. I think I think it's sort of a loose term that kind of gets it gets a little bit, just kind of generational. It sort of groups, everyone together. I think they were sort of I think there were new things happening with younger artists and how they were exploring art and ideas, and that I don't think that's totally just limited to race. I think it's it's a lot of different ideas and forms are being sort of explored in that way, and I think it may have just been it's a term that popped up in a lot of ways, but
not terribly valid.
Well, no, I wouldn't say that either. I'd say I wouldn't necessarily say there's a polemic idea about race as it's attached to that.
It's
word
not the
and
definitive measure.
Exactly. Yeah. Like people aren't, well, I can't speak for everybody, but people aren't necessarily this idea of being the body existing or not existing. It's also a very old idea. I think artists I just saw a terrific talk by Kelly Jones on these artists, Alma Thompson and Fred Eversley and Jack Whitten. All these artists were sort of working abstractly in the 1950s and 60s at the same time that the civil rights era is happening, and other artists are working in different ways. But that era just as much affected them and their work too as it did everyone else.
So the time in which one lives is really more critical.
Yeah, I think it's just.
Oh, I think we're very influenced by the times in which we live.
I totally agree.
Yeah. No, I do think so.
Yeah.
I have to tell you that Rashawn was chosen for the Whitney Biennial Award. Now this
is an exhibition.
This is exhibition. This is a really big deal. Really big deal. What went through your mind when you were notified that you were chosen for the Whitney Biennial Award exhibition? Exhibition. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's an exhibition.
Yeah.
Well, it's an exhibition. It happens every 2 years at the Whitney museum
Yeah, I
puts
know, but it's
on.
a big deal, Rashawn.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, maybe I just didn't. I don't know if it. I think it occurred to me, but it also didn't occur to me at the same point in time. I think I had a studio visit with curators the same I would with anyone else, and they asked me to be in an exhibition, and I said yes, and we talked about what work was going to go in and how.
What work did go in?
I had 2 pieces in there. I had during that biennial. They had this off-site project at the Armory building, this Armory space. And sort of, it was for a lot of projects that were more performative or temporal in nature and that sort of a thing. And then I had these fabric banners that sort of hung as soon as you walked into the space.
Not Griffin, Kansas.
No. Yeah, close to that. These were sort of the precursors to that. But they were stretched paintings, but they were, I mean, so far as they were stretcher bars, they were covered in fabric, and they sort of hung as soon as you came in. But I also had an installation, which was actually a sound piece that was in the Armory place. And so what actually was going on there is I actually had a mic and some speakers set up in New York. And then I had a friend who lived on a farm out in Kansas. And I gave him another, he had a laptop and a speaker and a farm. And we had a live audio feed from the farm in Kansas.
It was live all the time? It was installed?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
It just kept going and uploading. So it was a landscape, more or less, for lack of a better description. But the room was pretty much dark, and there was a few lights in there. So there wasn't much to see in terms of seeing. But you could close your eyes, and you could hear that space, and you could sort of imagine that space and what was happening and what was going on there. It's sort of like, you forget like how much sound goes into your
When you come up with an
experience
idea,
the
what do you think when do you have to sit and stew about what you're going to do, or does something hit you that is creative? I don't think that way, so I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's all generational. I think I was using a lot of materials, and it was important for the materials. Like, a lot of them came from my life and where they were coming from, and they had this whole history kind of attached to them. And I was sort of interested in a way to sort of circumnavigate that history, and that's where the sound piece kind of came from.
I see.
And so it wasn't really a nostalgia for this place, because this place was there. It was happening now. It was a one-to-one relationship. So it just kind of kept going in this way. It's happening now. And so.
Is that important to you that it's happening now? Something that
I'm interested in the life of things, not necessarily.
Be a little more expansive.
I like it when things are alive. I'm interested in the gesture and how you can take something from some place and recombine it, and it gets new life to some degree, and that story changes. The story of where it was changes.
We're back to sausage again.
Exactly. It's all about the sausage, more or less. So.
You came back to Johnson County. Why did you do that?
I came back here primarily. I had a show, and so I've been back and forth actually between New York and Kansas City.
Do you stay? Are you going to stay here?
I'm here I'm everywhere right now. So I'm here right now, and then I actually was in New York, and then I moved to Berlin for 4 months. I kind of like traveling, and I see where the art takes me and where it goes.
Yeah, but you see new things.
Exactly, and I see new things.
And if you're going to be creative, you have to see new things, or it seems to me that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, also I've never, as an adult, I've never lived here before until I came back. Like, I left when I was young.
Well, you left. You were 17 or 18.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I had some time, and I knew I had the show, so that's how everything sort
So
of
home
happened.
is wherever you lay your head.
To some degree.
Yeah.
I guess so. But
Is it hard to manage and maintain a career? I mean, your career needs managing at the moment.
yeah.
I mean, you're doing a lot of things and a lot of shows in different places. Do you manage your own career? And if you do, how do you do that?
I mean, my everyday is me in the studio making stuff. I try to focus on that, doing stuff. I think I actually never wanted a career. I never wanted a I think that's the great thing about art, is I went into it not wanting a career or a profession, or I never thought about it in those types of labels and what was happening. I wanted to make art, and I wanted that art sort of out there in the world and have it be, talk to people.
And guess what happened?
Yeah, and there it was. And so at that point, you just kind of you do what you do, more or less. And so like I said.
In other words, you just take it one day at a time.
Yeah, that's about it. Yeah.
I think
More or
that's
less.
an amazing thing. I do.
Yeah.
What's next on your artistic horizon? What are you going to do?
I'm finishing up actually the show with the Nerman. We're putting together. I think I'm working on a catalog right now. That's something
For this show?
for the show. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
which is well, actually, I want to say more of a book, like something.
Is
to
this
live
show,
on.
as it is, going somewhere else?
Parts of it are.
Do you
I'm not,
use
can't.
Do you use parts that of one show in another one?
No.
Do you ever do that?
No, not normally. I think
Mhm.
it's just there's logistics involved in where the show goes and what
You know
happens.
what?
and
As I
that's-
talk to you,
Yeah.
I think it is extraordinary. I mean, you
Yeah.
have an extraordinary career right now,
Yeah.
and yet you accept it as just part of your daily life. It's wonderful, Rashawn.
Oh.
I mean, you're not.
Thank you.
You're just a regular person. Well, you are, and you remind me. Really, you remind me of my son. I mean, you know, you talk about your collections and you sew your materials together, and you enjoy what you do, and it shows. I think.
Okay, that's great.
No, I think it is.
At the very least.
You know, sometimes artists change mediums. I mean,
Yeah.
you're a painter and a sculptor, and you do installations. What makes you change what you do?
You know, I don't actually think about the medium that much, so much as I think about the gesture and the material, and I sort of let whatever's there kind of direct me more
So you
or
go
less.
back and forth.
Yeah, so I try to go back and forth. I'm always doing small works at the same time that I'm working on larger projects or installations or bigger pieces, more or less. But like I said, I'm sort of, like for me, it's more about the stuff in the world, the things that kind of physically exist, and sort of finding a
It's
way
about
that my
stuff and making sausage.
well, yeah,
That's it.
but it's also like my own
Yeah.
my own fictions, my own, I think, art and even
Yes.
painting. A lot of days, you're sort of making your own fiction, and it's about this sort of private world, and where these private and public worlds kind of intersect. That's kind
That's where you are.
That's yeah.
I
for
just
sure.
think that is an amazing
Yeah.
thing. And you know, I look forward to living long enough
Mhm.
to having you be world famous, Rashawn. I think it may be coming. So,
Okay.
and I do hope so. And I know that you will accept it and live with it graciously and exude the talent that is within you.
Oh,
And
thank you very much.
I do.
Yeah.
I know your family must be very, very proud of you. What does your mother say about this?
Oh, my mother's always been super supportive about everything. Too supportive. she's happy for me.
Isn't that
yeah,
nice?
It's,
Does she like
good.
everything you do?
I think I don't know. You never know. I mean, yeah, I think so. They always love.
All mothers do.
Exactly.
All mothers
They all
do.
But my whole family's.
And
been really
you
supportive.
know, I just think that as saying thank you to Rashawn Griffin, he's an artist and a lovely young man, and he is our neighbor. And he says, I just take the things around me in my life, clothes and fabric and food, and you find some stuff and you make it work. And that's what you said.
Oh, okay. I didn't
So
realize.
I think
Sounds great.
that I invite all of you to go see Rashawn's A Hole in the Wall Country at the Nerman Museum and enjoy it just as I did. Thank you for being with us.
Oh, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
And thank you. It's our community, you know.